cauldron. How am I just picking up this book? I feel like I, Allie, am made up of whimsical fantasy and like dark, spooky horror things. And this book, it encapsulates all of that. It completes my soul. Not to mention that when I play Dungeons and Dragons, one of my go-to classes happens to be Ranger. And Feyre, she's a huntress with a bow, so I feel very kindred every time she pulls out her bow. And just the way that Sarah writes, it really transported me to a fantastical, whimsical world, which is where I spend with my friends on the weekends. So it felt, I don't know, cozy and safe and like home. Also, I got like very 90s grunge vibes from the writing of it. Raw and gritty and in your face, and it's not afraid to be those things. And then can we talk about the cover? I don't know what I saw when I first looked at this. I think I thought it was like a thorn or a bush. But then after I read the inciting incident, which is Feyre killing the wolf, I realized it is a wolf with the ash arrow. I actually really love that it's the inciting incident, because without the inciting incident, then this whole story, this whole plot wouldn't exist in the first place. I don't know if that was Sarah, the publishers, but it's pretty genius. For this first reaction, we're covering pages 1 through 37. Fantasy is my go-to reading series. I think practically everything on my shelf is fantasy except for the few. And I cannot express how old and magical and spooky this world feels that Sarah has created, which spooky is also a part of my soul. I mean, we're coming up on spooky time, or if you're me, it's already here. Anything but fairies. The hunters had beseeched our long-forgotten gods, and I had secretly prayed alongside them. In the 8 years we'd been living in our village, 2 days' journey from the immortal border of Perinthian, we'd been spared an attack. Though traveling peddlers sometimes brought stories of distant border towns left in splinters and bones and ashes, these accounts, once rare enough to be dismissed by the village elders as hearsay, had in recent months become commonplace whisperings on every market day. So when it comes to narration, I'm not against second person or third person, but first person is like, it's where I jive, it's my happy place. Because especially when there's like a lot of world building that needs to happen, I personally love and crave to discover the history and the lore. I personally love to learn about the world building and the lore through the first person perspective, because we get it through our main character. And usually how writers do this, and it's exactly what Sarah did, is where bits and pieces of history and lore and world building, they pop up purposefully, depending on what the character's doing, what they're experiencing, what their thoughts and feelings are in the moment. And so we're just getting hits of it, we're just getting bits of pieces, and it's creating like puzzle, and it makes me want more, it makes me crave more, and it creates like this mystery around it. And then we also get to discover more things through the characters that Freya interacts with, and that adds to our lore and our history building. And Freya's family dynamic is so interesting to me, and it's also kind of sad and tragic. Their whole family kind of has been built through trauma. First, they lost their mother, and then they lost their home and all their wealth, and went to the bottom, lowest level of poor possible. And not even that, what essentially brought them to that point is that Freya had to see her dad getting beaten by the people he was in debt to, while her sisters went and hid in the bedroom, which is their own sort of trauma. It's so messy and complicated. And specifically with Freya, because she's our main character, she wasn't really raised by anyone. Her mom and dad both kind of ignored her and didn't give her a ton of attention. And then the moment her mom was on her deathbed, she's like, you need to keep the family together. You need to promise me that you will take care of them and keep them together. Literally forcing Freya into the caretaker position and essentially like the parent, when she wasn't any of those things in the first place, which is really messed up. And Freya takes that on. And we especially learn why she does that even more so is because a promise is a vow in this world, especially because the mortals, the humans, they don't really have gods. And so a vow is the closest thing to religion that they have. And we definitely see how Freya's trauma comes out. She like really struggles with trusting and just feeling safe. Like she's always in a state of survival and trauma. And so I'm really interested to see how she progresses through the story, seeing how her trauma comes out in different ways and how Sarah handles her arc and her progressing as a character with all these things. What I really wanted to say was, You don't even bother to attempt to leave the house most days. Were it not for me, we would starve. Were it not for me, we'd be dead. And then we are brought to Tamlin, our fae. He's come to claim Freya, whether it was through life or death, and it's specifically through this treaty that has been made by the humans and fae. And it's all because of the inciting incident where Freya kills the wolf who's actually a fae. And it's so good because it is literally all entangled in the choice that Freya has to make about killing this wolf. I don't really think it's selfish. I think everything is valid in her decision making. You could say like maybe the only ego thing is that it comes from the hatred of fae, but I would also hate them too, knowing that they like enslaved my kind, tortured them, they still continue to do that, and that they like awful to humans. So literally the inciting incident is that Freya, she has to kill this wolf because it's about to kill the deer. She needs that deer to feed her entire family, and the amount of money that she could get for that wolf skin would cover their ass for like a decent amount of time. And at this point, it's winter, there's barely any animals out, and she has to do this in order to survive. And I just think it's beautiful because it's a survival choice. She either chooses not to, and she starves and dies, or she chooses to do it and survive. And she chooses to survive. She chooses to live, and then that's when everything goes cascading off. And then again, we are back in choosing survival. Freya chooses to go with Tamlin. She chooses to live because her dad wants her to live. Her dad wants her to survive, and she thinks that maybe if she chooses to live, she can somehow escape, she can come back and still take care of them. And she also does this kindness for Nessa by telling her she can't marry Thomas Mandry because his father is horrible and beats his wife, and the kids all stand there and let it happen, and she doesn't want that to happen to her sister. And I think that as much as she hates Nesta and she's so frustrated with how her family doesn't appreciate her, she still loves them. She's still connected to them. Like, they are her blood, and it's all she's ever known, and it's all she's ever had. So I'm gonna probably bring up this example a couple more times, but this story is giving me like so many Beauty and the Beast vibes. Obviously, specifically, it's just when Tamlin polymorphs, only when he's in his beast mode, but it gives me a lot of Beauty and the Beast vibes, and I am here for them. So as Freya arrives into the Spring Court, into the Fae realm, I just have all these notes in my book. Can all of them polymorph? What is Cauldron? They keep saying Cauldron. What's going on with the Blight? Why is it that Tamlin is able to protect Freya so well in this Fae realm? What power does he have in the masks? The masks, what is going on? And then some of my questions were answered, some in mysterious ways, some not completely. Stuck in masks for nearly 50 years. I would have gone mad, would have peeled my skin off my face. You didn't have a mask as a beast, and neither did your friend. The Blight is cruel like that. Either live as a beast or live with the mask. What sort of sickness is it? It's not a disease, not a plague or illness. It's focused solely on magic on those dwelling in Prynthian. Andros was across the wall that day because I sent him to search for a cure. And as Freya is learning more about this new land that she's in, specifically from hanging out with Lucian on these hunts that are going on, you guys, I'm getting over a head cold, and there's certain words that just aren't coming out right because I'm sick, so bear with me. She's learning more about this world and the secrets. And I feel like she's also understanding Tamlin more. I feel like Tamlin really wanted to teach her a lesson. Obviously, she chose to live, that was her choice. But through that, he wants her to realize that the wolf she killed, though she may hate Faye with every bone, blood, piece in her body, I feel like Tamlin is trying to teach her that just because someone is your enemy doesn't mean that they're not someone's friend, someone's family member, someone's loved one. And that makes Freya actually feel bad for what she's done. However, there are some Fae that are just straight up evil. One of the first ones that I've learned about is the Bogue, or Bog, Bogey. How do we want to say this? And it reminded me of fear itself, because you can't look at it, you can't show it any emotion, because once you do, you've given it like full power over you and it can kill you. So that kind of made me think about like fear itself, is that once you kind of give in to fear, you've given it power over you, it can overcome you. And then there's the Puka who deceives. It basically transforms into like her father trying to lure her out of the house just so it could torture and kill her, which is super creepy. So I love that these fae literally range from good, which is what like Tamlin and Lucian feel like, all the way to straight just like pure dark evil. And speaking of the Puka, when she follows the Puka thinking it's her father, and then Tamlin explains to her that it's not, and like, where is it you're trying to go? You have to stay here. Freya finally breaks, and I'm so happy because she gets so upset and vulnerable and just really tells Tamlin about how she's feeling and explains the vow that she feels like she's broken that her mother asked her to do. I made a promise, I said, my breathing ragged, to my mother when she died, that I'd look after my family, that I'd take care of them. All I have done every single day, every hour has been for that vow. And just because I was hunting to save my family, to put food in their bellies, I'm now forced to break it. And these are one of the moments where we really got to see Freya's trauma come out and how it's really affecting her in this new situation, because I feel like she's always been in a state of survival and trauma. Like, it's just that nonstop. And Tamlin has told her several times that she's safe here as long as she stays in the home. He will protect her, her family is looked after, and she can relax for once. And she doesn't know how to do that. And I feel like that's why she keeps trying to find ways to escape, ways to get back to her family. Like, she doesn't know how to just feel safe and okay. And we have proof that Tamlin is protecting her and he won't let anything happen to her. And we don't fully have proof about her family, but I feel like the way that Tamlin breaks it down and explains it, I do truly trust that her family is more taken care of and like more well off than they were before. So it's kind of like a blessing in disguise. He also reassures Freya that like her vow wasn't broken because of all this happening. He's able to take care of her family in a better way than she was able to, and they're gonna be in such a better place. And that just really warmed my heart that Tamlin respected that vow. He understands it and he knows like how important family is, regardless of them being mortals. They still relate to each other in some way. Do you want to see the rest of these A Court of Thorns and Roses reactions before anyone else? Then you can become a Daydreamer. At the $5 a month tier, you can join my Patreon and become a patron there, or join the YouTube channel and become a member. And if you can't do that, just subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment down below these videos goes such a long way. So thank you for all the support. Okay, so remember how I said that like I'm getting so many Beauty and the Beast vibes? He just showed her the study. I mean, it's probably a library, but Freya doesn't want it to be a library because she doesn't know how to read or write, but like, more Beauty and the Beast vibes, and I'm so here for it. And since she just went into the study, we have discovered the mural. Why everyone keeps saying cauldron. It began with a cauldron, a mighty black cauldron held by glowing, slender female hands in a starry, endless night. Those hands tipped it over, golden, sparkling liquid pouring out over the lip. No, not sparkling, but effervescent, with small symbols, perhaps of some ancient fairy language. Whatever was written there, whatever it was, the contents of the cauldron were dumped into the void below, pulling on the earth to form our world. That gave me chills. Like, this is the shit I crave in my fantasy worlds, like just pure magic, pure magic. So now we're really understanding like how this world was created, where everything came from. I mean, at one point, Lucian on one of the hunts says her. Is he maybe referencing like who created them? And maybe she caused this blight? I don't know. I'm loving this mystery, and just the pieces are slowly coming out as Freya discovers them. And speaking of Lucian, I really want her and Lucian to just be like besties, because I'm shipping her and Tamlin. I've been avoiding spoilers like the plague. I'll only be like a little upset if she's with Lucian, but I want her to be with Tamlin, especially the moment they had when she like bandaged his hand. And then there's another moment coming up that I will share. But I'm bringing this up because I'm segueing into when Lucian tells her how to find the cereal. And honestly, at first I was like untrustworthy of him. But as we meet the cereal, it just feels like this old and ancient but wise fae. Losing my voice, guys. Super creepy looking, but it felt harmless to me, especially after the questions Freya was asking it. And the questions that Freya was asking it, we got to learn about Hybern, which is like the other island next to our main world, Prynthian. And I was curious about what that was. And so it's interesting that there's a High King Fae over there. And he's like super upset that he can't enslave his mortals anymore. And so he sent like this super awful, vicious army into the mainland. And that's where they got cut off. And I'm like, no! And they mentioned like the deserter. So maybe that's causing the blight, or is it the maker of their world who spilled this cauldron into the void? Again, there's so much that I just don't know yet, and I love it. The thing that interrupted them. I think this is one of the most disturbing, creepiest things that we have met. And oh my God, I love it because it's so horrifying. The Naga. The description, it gave me chills. The Naga were sprung from a nightmare, covered in dark scales and nothing more. They were a horrendous combination of serpentine features and male humanoid bodies whose powerful arms ended in polished black, flesh-shredding talons. Oh, I would not want to face those, and the scene of her fighting them, so horrific. Oh, it was written so well. The Suriel is really cool in the sense of like, it can't omit truth and it has to tell you everything, but I just love dark, spooky things. So far the Naga are like my favorite. This moment of Tamlin saving Freya, I feel like it really shook her up inside. She finally thanked him in general for saving her life. Freya has been on the edge of starvation. I can only imagine that's a very different feeling than like you're about to get clawed to death. Freya was so used to being on the verge of starving that she'd never experienced something this horrific, and for Tamlin to go out of his way to save her when she, one, doesn't really trust people, but two, she doesn't trust the Fae at all, that this was a very important moment to really solidify her to start trusting him. But it also showed her that they're more alike than she thinks. They were both covered in blood from the Naga. She talks about them both being killers and hunters. She literally says, perhaps that made me as much as a beast as him. She's recognizing they're not that different. And this is why I'm shipping them, because I feel that they're both very guarded. They're both very afraid to trust people. Even when Tamlin tries to like be nice to her and like show he's willing to protect her, like we get these descriptions from Sarah of like, he doesn't come off nice, it feels forced. Like Tamlin is also struggling with this decision he's made. But as he like reaches to pull her up and she takes his hand, just trying to calm her down and reassure her, his voice just feels softer, even though she knows that he's like the High Lord now of this land, of the Spring Court. He was still willing to come out and save her, and she wasn't like as afraid of him in that moment because he protected her. And especially how she could feel that he got no satisfaction from the hunt, but it actually hurt him to hunt and kill these creatures and to constantly have to do this. And I don't know if that's related to the fact that he feels connected to them because they're all Fae, or he doesn't like that he has to kill, or whatever it is. But there was something in that moment of her understanding him more, even though they're both very blocked. And I just think it was a very big, important moment for these two. I'm just so enthralled with this world. Oh my God. So I'm gonna go back to reading because I need to know all the things.